Come on, children. We're waiting. Hello. Sheila. Bree. Joel. Jonathan. Makia. Makia. Come on, I'm waiting. Sorry, y'all had to wait. Hello, Helen, Tempe, Dell, Holly, Jojo, how you do? Isha, Gabrielle, Grace, love, Michelle. Come on, children, we're waiting for you. Thanks for waiting for me. Need to talk about today. I actually forgot today was Tuesday. I don't know what's been happening to me. I was sitting in there watching some of the responses, and Malachi called me, and that's when I realized I should be here. I apologize. Almost 30 minutes late. Come on, children. Rain Johnson, Gusto, I like that name. Essie Morris. All righty, children.
Make sure you guys go ahead and like and share. Let's get some shares out there. Push this out.
Yes, please. Like and share. Subscribe. Get the word out. My members should be multiples of what they are, but they're watching the algorithms, and I haven't been encouraging you to yeah. I'm going to get right in since we're a little bit late. But thank you for tuning in again. I think our message and mission is so important that we've got to stick to it. We have to stay focused. Things are changing, as I've been telling you, pretty almost violently. First of all, an indictment is simply a formal charge or an accusation of a serious crime. The president was accused and charged today for a serious crime. He actually became arrested, as you probably followed the story. An indictment is not a conviction, nor does it guarantee one. So he may get completely free of this. He's been so rude to the prosecuting attorney, district attorney, and the judge, and now he's attacked the judge's daughter and the prosecutors. I don't know how his attorneys even stomach him, because he is such an arrogant, ignorant, obnoxious person. There were some things he did that were decent as a president, but overall, he really screwed up our country and has screwed up the consciousness of so many people. As you know, as a follower of the Christ person and principle, I'm very disappointed and disenchanted with so many evangelical Christians. And I've been doing a lot of research on us and them and the history of their fingerprints of racism and bigotry and lack of compassion in this country for 400 years, not just the 200 or 300 years we've been liberated from British tyranny, but it's just a vice there that seems to be very alive and very well, not within the youngest of them, but in the traditionalists. There were preachers in this town last night that had a meeting. One of them was Ken Hagin's grandson. He was leading the prayer, praying that no weapon formed against Trump would prosper. And there was just a small group of them, but they're really ultra-conservative Christians, embarrassingly so. Jim Baker, all these guys are in that camp, even Kenneth Copeland, whom I dearly love and respect and have for many years. But it's like he's brainwashed us. Most people don't know, if you voted for Donald Trump, you voted for Vladimir Putin because Vladimir Putin wanted Donald Trump to be doing what he's doing in this country. He knew he was the kind of guy that would be a puppet in his hand. Trump loves all the dictators and authoritarian type people, from China to North Korea to Russia, other places. He wants to be that in America, and he's made some good headway toward it. He was ready to do a coup like Castro did in Cuba. He studied all of that. He had members of the military, members of generals and admirals, retired and some present, working with him on the January 6th event. They haven't even told us all the stuff that happened. We came very, very close to a complete coup d'etat, and he's still trying to do it. Now, first of all, I don't think he'll win as president. I want him to run, continue to make a fool of himself. Even DeSantis should run against him and let them make fools of each other. He won't win. He never really legitimately won an election in this country. He lost by 3 million of the popular vote. In this country, constitutionally, the majority rules. So he lost by 3 million with Hillary. Talk about lock her up, lock her up. They're going to end up locking him up because today's court was the least of the other two major criminal indictments that are coming to this man. He's in deep trouble. I don't think he accepts that. Mar-a-Lago, his office is set up like the Oval Office. Everybody has to call him Mr. President there. He still denies that Biden is the winner legitimately. And a lot of his cronies and fans and followers do too. And it's been proven that the last election was legitimate. All across the country, even from Republican secretaries of state and others who were in charge of the elections, they're saying, Mr. Trump, we can't find anything to verify what you're saying. But he holds on to it. And that, I cannot said a majority, Marjorie Green, I always forget her name. I think it's, when I don't like somebody that much, it goes out of my mind. But anyway, the girl that went, the lady congresswoman that went to Washington today, she's an idiot. She's
Marjorie
Green. Yeah, she's mentally deranged. She has no business in the Congress. But I'm not as concerned about her or Trump as I am about the people who follow them. Now, she has a very small district that was gerrymandered, and her people are not that bright. But she's in office, and that's very threatening that somebody like Donald Trump could become president. And I blame that on Christians, evangelical, mostly white Christians, not exclusively, but particularly white evangelical Christians are the tool that Putin used through Trump to tear our country apart the way it is. I've not heard anybody even bring up Vladimir Putin, but he's behind all this. He and China, they're propagandizing the internet right now, whether it's TikTok or Twitter and all those things. This man has gone nuts. And the people that pack those rooms out shouting, they know he's a thug, but they don't accept it. So again, an indictment is not a conviction and doesn't guarantee one. It does draw attention to the possibility of suspicion of criminal activity, something Donald Trump has long been directly and indirectly both suspicious and guilty of. He's known in the New York area for over 50 years as being a thug, a mobster. He, long before anybody brought up misogyny or racism, he made a lot of white businessmen go bankrupt. He doesn't pay his attorneys, has a reputation of not paying his workers, or cheats them out of the money he owes them. I was in Atlantic City a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and his reputation there was horrible. He nearly destroyed that city. This man has been like a wrecking ball, just going through the country ripshod, and we've got to stop him. He's out of control, and we can only do that at the ballot box. He will not win. I don't fear that at all. I know he won the first time, but they will not allow that to happen. If the majority of the votes aren't for a particular candidate, they're not going to win this time. America's learned a hard lesson. Many are disappointed because today's court appearance brought nothing new to what most already knew, believed, or presumed about Trump. I too, I wanted something new. But it was important that what happened, to see him literally arrested. They didn't handcuff him, they should have. They didn't fingerprint him, they should have. They did fingerprint him, they should have put his mug up there. Then he goes away and completely ignores what the judge says and just attacks it. The man has no regard for law or rules. What concerns me, of course, the most about this is that it doesn't concern his fans, his followers, most of whom are often pious, white, evangelical, right-wing, conservative hypocrites. Now, and I'm saying this about some of the guys I know are sincere. Preachers, pastors, laity. Tulsa's full of them. I walked and worked among them here for 50 years. I've been in this town 53 years in August. Built a major ministry here. Have friends who are in ministry that grew out of my ministry. The largest and most generous church in the city, its pastor grew up under my ministry. I hired his parents 40 years ago. But most of them are all in that camp. Not all of them, but many of them. Even Black Christians are either complacent or complicit. They just don't pay any attention to it. No president has spewed more arrogance, anger, vice, and vitriol than Donald Trump. He's a classless, shameless, and unapologetically narcissistic fascist who's not worthy of the solemn office of the President of the United States. Even Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate, has expressed openly that he thinks that the, quote, the former president's political clout has diminished. He says he doesn't think he's qualified for the office of the presidency. Not all, but huge amounts of Trump's followers are backwards and backwoods, neo-Nazi, white supremacist, racists who embrace white supremacy with passionate as if it's a passionate religion for them. A passionate religious fervor. They think they're doing the will of God. You couldn't be a member of the Ku Klux Klan unless you were a born-again Christian. White supremacy underlies a spectrum of contemporary movements, folks, including in this country, including white nationalism, white separatism, neo-Nazism, and the Christian identity movement, Christian nationalism. I've said repeatedly that Christian whiteness is different than Christian witness. These guys are not concerned about the witness. You couldn't be a member of the Ku Klux Klan if you weren't a Christian back in the 1800s. So-called, let me say this part, so-called sexual sins are as old and common as the human race. I'm not as concerned about this regarding Trump. He did some illegal things around it. So my emphasis, and neither was the emphasis of the district attorney in New York about sexual, quote unquote, sexual sins. It remains a societally accepted or at least tolerated practice, and it has been for millennia. It occurs particularly, but not exclusively, by men in powerful positions, authoritative positions, including celebrities and athletes and politicians and preachers. All somehow are but expected, even tolerated customarily for doing these kinds of things. I've known of preachers committing adultery and fornication all my life, from my own grandfather, some of my uncles. Nearly every pastor of a Pentecostal church in San Diego, not all, but many of them were adulterers. Bishops and leaders to this day still are. Rarely do you have stories of women abusing men. It's usually men, powerful men. Not every time, but sometimes women just let guys get by with stuff. I'll never fully understand that, but that's the way it happens. So things are rapidly changing after millennia around this, but ignoring and accommodating repeated and habitual bad boy or boys will be boys excuses and reckless trends and traits proliferated. You can't just say boys will be boys or, all these bad boys. We got to stop this foolishness. But we've gotten by with it, and it's hard psychologically for men to realize you can't wink at a woman anymore. You can't whistle at a woman. You can't say, suggestive things. Some women don't even want you to open the door for them anymore. It's an insult to them. It's suggesting that they're weak. They are the linen and we are the denim. Men generally are stronger than women with muscularity. Of course, there's a lot of trans women and there's a lot of lesbians that are stronger and are working out muscles and they're playing sports and they're working hard and they're winning trophies and getting paid. There's a lot of things changing. And I think it's good stuff changing. We just have to adjust to them. My concern about Trump has very little to do with the issues for which Trump was indicted today, as I said earlier, but for the larger picture of what his spirit has brought to light in our country and in our culture. He both awakened and invited an at least 400-year-old vice and vicious living and languishing, viciousness living and languishing in the soul and center of this nation since before it was legitimately independent from British tyranny. This racism and arrogance and bigotry has been lying at the root of this country, came over from Britain. Remember, 16th century King's English, 1619, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all the creatures. 6 years later, the first slaves arrived here in America because they took that literal translation of 16th century English from Greek and Latin. They translated into English, and the British heard and felt license to quote unquote evangelize really with slave trade. And they felt justified scripturally for doing it. The man, John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, was a vicious, violent, vile slave trader, hideously mean and torturous to slaves. And then his ship looked like it was going to crash with a storm one night, and he repented and felt bad. And he prayed and said, God, if you let me get through the storm, I'll stop being so bitter and mean. I'll change my attitude towards slaves. When he woke up that morning, he heard the sound of seagulls. And that made him say, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, because seagulls meant that they were near land. That saved a wretch. That's where the term comes from. A lot of people don't use the term, but he was talking about his own self. Paul called himself, oh, wretched man that I am, who should deliver me from this deathly nature? When I want to do good, evil is right there with me. There's a lot of Christians who want to do good, but racism is right there. In their inner being, they delight in the law of God. But if they find another law, another standard, racism at work in the members of their body, making them prisoners to the law of sin at work within their bodies. These are Christians stuck on slavery, bigotry, supremacy, white white privilege. It's there. It's been there for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. They're not going to change overnight. I understand it. But awakened souls and spirits will recognize what's there. We all have egos. We all have tendencies and proclivities toward error, inaccuracies, and wrong, or quote unquote sin. And they'll never go away. But at least we know they're there, and we manage or control them better than we would if we were ignorant of that they're alive and well in our beings and in our bodies. Again, I'm neither concerned or afraid that Trump will win or become president of the United States again. I just don't believe that. Over 60% of Americans believe he should be prosecuted for whatever illegal deeds he is proven guilty of. Today, 60% believe that. 72% of Republicans don't believe that, of course, but Democrats do, and normal, sober, sane, non-partisan partisan people believe that. Remember, he lost by 3 million of the popular vote with Hillary and 7 million with Joe Biden. My concern is that he is allowed to continue his obvious and arrogant criminal activity, much of which he has been engaged in for 50 years in America. We can't let him keep getting by with this stuff. He's guilty of misdemeanors and or white-collar felonies today. I don't know what the judge and jury, when he goes back, and he tried to not ask the judge that he wouldn't have to appear again, and the judge said, no, you got to appear again. So he's going to have to go back to court, go through the same thing, go in that. He's a germaphobe, so he hates all the eakiness. And if I was them, I'd have made it sit his hips in jail while they were processing him. Just let him sit in there for a few minutes, like billions of others. His dad went to jail. His son-in-law's father went to jail. Trump needs to, and he might. He could get as many as 20 years on this case out of Mar-a-Lago in the classified documents. And he's trying to compare what he did with Biden and Pence. Neither one of them knew that they had the documents and didn't take them intentionally. And those who keep the archive should be fired for not following up on the documents and making sure that like a library person, you when you sign them out, you got to sign them back in. If you don't, they charge you or they follow you up, or they should mark this stuff and categorize it. Keep a record of what they're doing. Anyway, Trump may not be honest, but he's profoundly earnest about winning any and every battle he has or whatever fight. You have to respect that part of it. He sticks to it. He's very honest and earnest about winning, but he's sick. I think this man is sick. Not many people will speak against the president the way I am, but this man is sick. And I happen to believe that not all, but most of his followers, at least a lot of them are too. I mean, he's got some really extremist, neo-Nazi, crazy. Racism is a form of mental illness. These people are not well. He's an unfit president, both a shame and sham of leadership. Indeed, an affront to integrity, an affront to democracy, an affront to ethics or character. Can we not see that in this country? Throngs cheered and almost worshiped Adolf Hitler. Millions of them were committed Protestant Christians and Catholics across Eastern Europe. That didn't make him right. He was still a sick son of a biscuit eater. Hitler was horrible. Mussolini and Stalin, Lenin, Vladimir Lenin and Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. I put them all in the same Pol Pot. I put them all in the same category. They're evil. Why do we let single men, rarely do you hear this about women, single men dominate the mindsets of millions of people and torture and torment human beings? This is, and we do it repeatedly. We can stop it. The courts can stop it. The Congress can stop it. But you've got all these idiots in Congress who don't care and shouldn't be there. They're being bought by huge financiers. Follow the money. And you can tell where these people really are. That's why the scripture says the love of money is the root of all evil. And as Reverend Ike would say, so is the lack of money. So I'm not impressed with religious mindsets concerning authentic justice or righteousness, whether Christian, Jewish, Islamic, or other Eastern religions, because they're off base. It's the progressives or as some people call them, the liberals that are more aware and more decent in their thinking. And there's a lot of Democrats that are backwards, and just like they're not as openly backwards, but the Republican Party is embracing this thug, this, and if he's not somehow prosecuted, a spirit of anarchy and vice and chaos will sweep this country in ways we've never seen it before. I think the universe allowed Trump to be exposed so that we can expel what he represents in this country. He was raised up to bring exposure to what needs to be expelled. I think Vladimir Putin, when you've heard me say this before, when Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and the wall came down, Vladimir Putin, you should do a little, you can't find a lot on him, but do some research on him. He's a very evil, mentally ill man. Anybody that can kill and torture humans at the rate he does is sick. He should not be in a position of power. And now he's fixed it so the Russians made him in power till he dies. But he said, let me study America. I'm going to bring him down. I'm going to find out what democracy is and what is the strength and or weakness of America. And you know what I think he found out in his investigations? And he did decades of studying before he got to where he is right now. He found out that the number one weakness and the number one strength in America is religion and racism. And that's what he is using now to tear and split our democracy. Tear down and split our democracy. Common sense tells you not to vote for the man our number one enemy is pushing through propaganda. He didn't want Hillary Clinton. He wanted Donald Trump, who'd never served public, voted public, elected public office ever in the history of his life. What do we do here, church? What have you done, Christians? What are you thinking, Christians? You can call me a heretic all you want. You're a hypocrite. I'd rather be a heretic than a hypocrite. Heretic means I just made a choice. The whole movement. You guys are out of step. I worked with you. I walked with you. I still love you. But I do not respect your mentality. You're off. You're backwards. You're insensitive. You're non-discerning and non-deserving of respect. What in the world is the matter with you? This man is a misogynist. He talks about grabbing women's pussies. He said it, and y'all still voted him in. He said, I could point a gun on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and my followers will stay there. Exactly. He read you. He knows you. He plays you like a fiddle. He has no respect for you or your God. He's not interested in you or your God. He don't believe that stuff. You know what he said to Cohen when he was leaving one of those prophetic gatherings, all these preachers laying hands on him, praying and prophesying? He leaves there with them and says to Cohen, because he has it in his book, can you believe these assholes believe all this bullshit? That's what Donald Trump said about believers, Christians, tongue talking, prophesying, pious, religious evangelicals. He said it. What's the matter with you guys? And I'm still waiting for leaders to really speak up and speak out. I'm a little bit loose, because I don't have to answer to a board of directors of a denomination, thank God. But a lot of the leaders of the church realize what I'm saying is true. They just can't say it because they're afraid of saying it, and they don't want to tarnish their brand. But I know a lot of leaders who believe what I'm saying and should be saying it some kind of way, louder, and collectively. We should come together as collective leaders, at least in the Black church, if not all the churches, and say, this is wrong. We apologize. We repent. We should never have endorsed this man. And the way they treated Obama, who was a Christian, born again, loved God, and Michelle. I know Jeremiah Wright, their pastor. He's one of the most brilliant preachers on the planet, one of the most brilliant thinkers. He's a theologian and a scholar and a musicologist and a historian, a prince of a preacher, a prince of a person. I love him. And he greatly influenced the Obamas. He's a great man. And we didn't even join with him when they turned against him. Most Black folks in this country knew when he said, God doesn't bless America, God needs to damn America. We all knew what he said, and we know he didn't mean that we want our country to be damned. He did mean he wanted to be condemned. That's what the word damn means, condemned or doomed to judgment. And actually, we're under judgment right now. We've been a racist nation, unrepentant and unapologetic all these years, and Trump brought out the worst in us. And we just need to repent, not repeat. We don't even need to repair some of that stuff. We need to replace a lot of the doctrines and dogmas of the Christian church. I'm embarrassed and ashamed of much of what I see. And I was one of the most loyal, committed, fundamentalist, Holy Ghost filled Christians on the planet. I joined the Republican Party when Ronald Reagan said, you can't help me, but I can help you, back in the 80s. And discussed it with Earl, and Earl said, I'll always be a Democrat. Oral Roberts voted for Obama. Would have voted both times, but he was ailing and sick the last and died right after the second election. But he was a very progressive man, and he cared for hurting people. He was always for the underdog. That's why we became friends. I came here as a young Black man from the ghettos of San Diego. He instantly acknowledged my spirit, recognized my anointing and my appointing, and got me involved and started pouring into me more than any single student in the 25,000 that he presided over as president of the university. He set me apart, and he was heartbroken when I started preaching inclusion because he knew it would destroy what he and I had built together, and it did. But he also said, stick with a controversial subject for 7 years, son, and you can change the world. He said, if I was younger, I'd get more involved in you, but I'm too old to do it. Oral Roberts always cared more about people than his religion gave him permission to. He didn't want all these people he preached to around the world, or not preached to, go to hell. Billy Graham had the same spirit when he died. You live a little longer, and you end up saying what Solomon did. Vanity, vanity. This is all vanity. It's almost saying BS. It's all BS. It ain't working because it didn't satiate his soul. His psyche, he built. He was a world-acclaimed poet, botanist, scientist. He could write and sing, a psalmist, an architectural genius. And he ends at my age, 70, saying, this is crap. This is vanity, meaningless. I don't want to die saying this is all a bunch of crap, which is basically what Solomon said. And Earl was sort of upset at the end. The university's doing great. The Greens have stepped in. It's immaculate. They're building buildings, packed out students. Eventually, it'll be very unpopular to go to Christian schools. They're packing out right now because Christians are freaked out that the world is changing, so they want to get their kids protected. The same spirit they had when Jim Crow was outlawed and school integration and open neighborhoods and stuff came. The right Christians starting Christian schools, primarily to get their kids away from the hippies and the drugs and the blacks and the browns. And they're still afraid of the world they're supposed to love and save. They're going to hit persecution at a level they've never known in recent years. And they invited it by picking a fight with the 21st century. We've treated trans in this state, all these, I think there's 400 bills in Congress just around trans. Why are they so intimidated by trans? The numbers are not even that large. There's far more gays than trans, but they're demonized trans like they demonize gays, like they demonize people of color. Same white evangelical mentality. It's the church fear-based theologies that are making life difficult for so many people. They're trans young people that are, and adults I would imagine, that are suicidal. I mean, the suicide rate for them is higher than ever. But there's some that will probably take their life tonight. I wish they could hear what I'm saying. They don't hear anybody speaking up for them. They're little kids in schools, in high school, and junior high, and young in college that are trans over there. They'll never do it now because it's like a death certificate. There's a lot of same-gender loving people, gays, who dare not speak out because they're so afraid of us, the church. The secular world has been much more accommodating and compassionate and understanding. The church should be the most compassionate, understanding, and loving. We aren't. We're the most judgmental, arrogant, ignorant, obstinate, obnoxious. Ooh, sometimes when I hear the term Christian, I look for the first exit. I've been one all my life. I'm embarrassed. And I want to draw attention to this because I know it's going to change. But I don't want those of you who are confused by it to think you're out there by yourself. Don't be completely disillusioned with faith, however you experience faith or express it. Hold on to your faith, whatever it is. And if you need to tweak it, tweak it. If you need to adjust it, adjust it. I've done that. I still love God, not the one of the Bible who said he don't like me and that he regretted that he made me. And said the spirit wasn't going to strive with me or umpire this situation between the hybrid race of people we are, part alien, angels fall down. Aliens, they weren't just angels, they were aliens that fell down or came down and liked our women. I suppose they were all males. All the fallen angels or aliens were males, came down here looking at our girls and daughters and marrying them or raping them, somehow making a hybrid race of giants, which still exists. The hybrid part of the extra super intelligence, we're creating that with AI, showing that we're regaining and reclaiming some of that masterful mentality and intelligence that came into us from the aliens. We're creating spaceships and people, artificial intelligence. We're aliens, y'all. We're mixed. That super high intelligence mastery spirit is in us, and it's been there all the time. It was muted for a while, crippled for a while. We're excavating, we're coming up, we're growing. These little kids have these phones and things in their hands. Babies, they just could read it. They get it. They come here knowing. Like the old folks used to say when I was a kid, they said, that boy, you've been around here before. He's been around. They're saying you have an old spirit in you. And I think we all do. Maybe more now than ever before. All right, I need to stop. I started late, but I'm going to stop early, or at least by 9:30. But thank you for your attention. What have I said? I said it's going to get better, but not before it gets worse. Natural disasters are going to intensify. The earth is groaning. Science will frighten us and enlighten us and excite us and incite us to do things. Artificial intelligence is going to startle us as it increases. But we're living in a really fast-paced, knowledgeable day. Science will be, with spirituality and mysticism, will be the new spirituality, I should say. Science and mysticism, technology, is going to become the new religion, the new spiritual paradigm. A lot of scientists are becoming more mystical, and they're realizing that there's a lot more to life than we see. The whole scientific world is now beginning to say, we're not the only ones in this universe. There are trillions of universes, galaxies, I should say, in our galaxies, billions of galaxies. And of course, there's life in other galaxies. There's going to be some intergalactic communication. I know that sounds weird and scientific and scary to y'all, but there's going to be some kind of intergalactic contact pretty soon. I think we've already made some. They're keeping it quiet. We're not here alone. There is a higher intelligence, and we are growing in our intelligence. Knowledge, as scripture refers to, is running to and fro in the earth very powerfully. We're going to know ourselves and know our divinity, know the gods we are, and begin to be more reverential of ourself and our soul, and worshipful, if you will, of other selves and souls. If we reverence other human beings the way we call ourselves reverencing some outside source we call God, we'd have much more peace on this earth. If you see everybody as divine, or as a divinity, as an entity, as a God-ordained and divinely ordered human being human, if we could get that together, it would be much better. We wouldn't have this crazy Trump stuff and these extremists and racists and bigots and anti-Semitic, and you'd almost be anti-anything but love and acceptance and communication and compassion. All that's very important. You hearing me? All right, we're done. Love you. I understand. You're cutting me off, Malachi. That's fine. It's time to go. Thanks for listening. You're precious people. I love you. I adore you. I celebrate you. I think the world of you. I thank you for being my friends. I thank you for being in my life. I thank you for being part of what I'm doing and who I am, and that we're doing this together. It's just so much fun to do it together. It really is. It really, really is. All right, let's go here. Go here. We're done, huh? Right?